Hey, welcome to this episode of A Good Problem to Have. I'm your host, Tyler Olson. We're at the very end of our 8-part mini-series designed for you new interns to help you create a simple and achievable financial plan. We've been talking about student loans, federal and private, cash flow management, employer benefits, saving up for an emergency fund, investing, different types of insurance. And today, our last part is about estate planning. It is not usually the first thing that people think of when they think of financial planning, but it's very, very important. It is really to do so is an expression of our love and respect for not just ourselves, but our loved ones. Because in the case of our being incapacitated, or in the case of our death, what happens with our assets? What happens with our decisions? And how are our loved ones cared for when we cannot make those decisions or take action any further? That's what estate planning is, in essence. And so for you new interns, you might be thinking that these sort of things they're not applicable to you. And some things may be less urgent than others. But we're going to go through a few items to help you to appreciate the areas that are really important to take care of, depending on the details. Having an estate plan is essentially at least two things. One, having a written will that has been executed. And two, therein with the will or separately, having living benefits activated. What I mean by that is having written out a power of attorney for medical decisions, power of attorney for financial and transactional authority. These POAs, power of attorneys, attorney documents, are designed to give specific people in your life authority to help take care of things if you become incapacitated. For example, if you're unconscious for some reason for a sustained period of time, and doctors, well, you all probably know this far better than I do, you appreciate having a clear line of authority on who you're going to talk to give recommendations, and who is the person that has the final say on what sort of care their loved one is going to get. And having a POA is very helpful in these situations. A lot of times, if we're married, our spouse inherently has such authority, generally speaking, those do hold up. But, a POA helps to confirm our wishes, and also provides backups, because what if we and our spouse are both in a car accident or something, and our spouse is not able to advocate for us? Having a backup is really important. So having a power of attorney for medical decisions is critical. Same thing with financial transactions. Imagine if someone else tried to get access to your bank account, a family member even, someone that you trust. Can they go to the bank and pay bills? Can they withdraw money from your account? Of course not. It's your account. Just because you're in the hospital and unconscious, that does not move the needle at all at the bank. Obviously, I don't mean to say that they don't care, but they can't just let you start doing stuff with your money in the account without a power of attorney. So this is another reason why it's so important to take care of these living benefits that are often held within a will. A will fundamentally is hey, if I die, what do I want to be done with my stuff? Or my money, my house. And if you're single, all these things that I've just mentioned to you, maybe the who gets my stuff or who gets my money is not incredibly time sensitive. Power of attorneys are, because any of us could get sick, right? And we want to be able to have support while we're unable to advocate for ourselves, both in medical decisions and financial management, bills got to be paid, right? You want those things in place. But, maybe if you don't have kids or if you're not married and you don't have much to speak of in assets anyway because you just graduated medical school, right? There's not like a ton of assets that needs to get divvied up. But you do want the foundation, and you do have some things. Whatever those things are, you should take the opportunity to make your wishes known, make them legally binding with an executed will. And when I say executed, what I essentially mean is that you've created a will, and I'll share how you can do that in a little bit, but you've created a will document, and then you go to get those documents notarized. Basically witness that like you signed it and that you're the one that is in agreement to what was written in the will. Now, if you are a person that's married, if you have kids, it is so much more critical to take care of this sooner, because now you have people that are relying upon you and your income. And if you're incapacitated or gone entirely, leaving it up to your spouse, if you're married, or to the probate court to divvy up like what happens with your house and what happens, like if you have nothing in writing, it creates a very, very sad situation. Or what I mean to say is the situation is very sad already. And now it creates an additional layer of stress, anxiety about money and legal decisions. So please, please, please get a will written. Get a POA for medical decisions and financial authority. Now, where do you do this? Of course, you can hire an estate planning attorney. I'd say getting just a will drafted on its own, that's going to run you at least $1,500 from what I've seen. And, it could be, upwards of $2,500, $3,000, depending on, depending on the attorney, right? However, there's a few DIY options now. The one that I go to right off the bat is called Trust and Will. I've used them myself in the past for like just helping clients get things sorted out on a DIY level. And they have the ability where you can have a will written, and that for a single person is $200. For couples, it's $300. And you can get that stuff squared away. So if you go to trustandwill.com, trustandwill.com, you can get started. I have no conflict of interest, no COIs with this company. I just know they do decent work. The add-on to wills and POAs is having a trust. Now, having a trust, that's going to be an extra layer that may very well not be needed right now in intern year. But having a trust is essentially making some decisions that you want to add a layer of control on how and when your heirs get your assets. When you get to a point where you actually have $3, $4, $5 million in term life insurance, you designate beneficiaries with those policies. And if you're married, the primary is probably going to be your spouse. But who's going to be what's called your contingent beneficiary? If you've got kids, it's problematic to make your contingent beneficiaries minors. Not just because how's an 11-year-old going to be able to handle $3 million, but also they're minors. They can't legally possess that money in a place, put it into an account that they can open up on their own. They're not adults. So that creates a situation that's not very tenable. So if you have young kids and you get to a point where you've got a lot of assets, or you got a life insurance policy that would pay out a lot of assets if you died, then that's when a trust comes into play, because you can make the trust the contingent beneficiary. Or if if you're not married and you have kids, you can make the trust the primary beneficiary for the benefit of your children. When you make a trust, it's like you're creating an entity. You assign it a name, the Tyler Olson Trust, or whatever, your name, obviously. I'm just saying that's what mine could be, right? You can, once you have the trust documents created, and you can actually use trust and will for this too, if you want to DIY. If you have more complex situations, though, and more unique needs, if you have kids with special needs, or if you have a complex family situation, or if you have a lot of assets or a lot of different unusual assets like business assets, private business assets, then you may want to hire a professional attorney that you can talk to kind of figure out the details. In any event, you want to make sure that you can create this entity, get a tax ID number so that it's like a company. It's like a company. Technically, it's a person in the eyes of the law. But what I mean is it's like a company that can possess assets. And you control the rules of this trust so that when you die, your money in your checking account and savings account go into the trust. The property that you own, your home, can go into the trust. And then the trustee, which is another person that you've decided to trust with your financial decisions after you've died, they have to follow the rules that you've set. If you got little kids and you said, I don't want my kids to get their inheritance until they're 22 years old, I'm going to give them half when they're 22 and the other half when they're 28. The trustee's responsibility is to manage those assets until your kids reach those ages, because those are the rules that you created. So there's a lot of detail that can go into this, and for you interns, this latter section probably is not applicable. Might be, but for many of you, it's probably not. So for you, get the will written, get the power of attorney documents completed as soon as you can. Regardless of your family dynamic, if it's just you, still important. If you've got kids, super important. I know this is not like the most exciting area of things to work on in terms of financial planning. We like thinking about getting rid of the student loans or investing and growing our wealth. That all sounds a lot more interesting, but this is so important. So make sure to take care of it. And you've got a couple of months right now where things are not as busy as they're going to be. So, if you like the DIY method, go to trustandwill.com, get it done. I promise you, it's not that complicated, especially with these processes now, these digital processes. They're pretty cool. And then you can put it behind you. So that's the last piece. You have to make some tough decisions. Decide, like, if you got kids, you do have to choose like successor guardians, like who would take care of our kids. But that's going to be different than who's going to manage the proceeds of our life insurance policy. Those might be two different people, because the people that we trust with our kids, they may not have the acumen to manage $3 million, right? So a successor trustee is a different person than the successor guardian, for those of us with kids. So you have some decisions that you have to think about, and you won't just be like, oh yeah, maybe you do in your life. If you got people that you trust and they're very earnest, and they have different skill sets and qualities that you would feel like, yeah, they could do this, and you ask them and they say yes, then that's great. But it might, for some of us, it's harder to be able to find those people in our life. But in any event, you owe it to yourself and your loved ones to go through this process and get some decisions completed. Well, that's it for today, and that's it for this mini-series. We'll be talking about some more complex problems, but still good problems to have in the coming weeks for you doctors. So come back next week. Take care.